Hello everybody, welcome to my channel today, and in today's video I'm going to be setting up a bioactive enclosure for my checkered garter snake, Charisse. Now, what is a bioactive enclosure? Instead of going from a sterile or a semi-sterile environment like most aquariums, with a bioactive enclosure you're actually creating a living environment. So um, with a snake, when they produce waste, there's going to be a cleanup crew in there that'll break down the waste. So that'll result in less cleaning. Now, it's not necessarily less work than a normal terrarium, but it's less of the work that I used to hate doing. So, with an old terrarium setup, I'd spot clean weekly, and then about once every 1 or 2 months, I'd have to completely tear the enclosure down, replace the soil, and then put it back together. But with this, I don't really have to do that. All I have to do is maintain the plants in the enclosure and occasionally spot clean. Any urates that are produced, I clean up, and if my snake creates a mess that I think is a little too overwhelming for the cleanup crew, then I'll help out and clean that up. But for a garter snake, usually the springtails and the isopods can handle pretty much anything that gets thrown at it. Why did I decide to go bioactive? Well, about a year ago, I went bioactive with my corn snake, Frankie, and he seemed to really like it. He showed a lot more natural behaviors. He would burrow, come out, and I don't know, he just seemed happier in that enclosure. He had more stimulation. Since then, I've set my king snake and my hognose snake, and obviously now I've set my garter snake up on bioactive, and they've all have seemed to have really excelled on it. Now, that said, disclaimer, I am not an expert. If you disagree with something I'm doing in the video, please share your thoughts in the comments. And if you have any suggestions, let me know. If you have any questions, ask, and I'll be sure to answer. In the meantime, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Okay, for the soil mix, we're using organic potting soil, tropical bedding mix, sphagnum moss, and fir bark. Now, the ratio of soil to junk or tropical soil mix that I use is 1:1. And the organic soil I just picked up at Home Depot. So you throw the bark in, you mix it all together. That was my favorite part. Now, as far as the specific ratio, I just went with what looked best. So if you have any better ratio, if there's any other way you do it, let me know. Now, these plants I also picked up at Home Depot in the indoor plant department. I'm leaving them in the pot for the time being, but I'm actually going to replace the pots with the biodegradable pots. I find that if you plant the plants directly into the medium, the snake, when they burrow, will uproot them and your plants will die. So I'm just figuring out where they go. And here I'm putting the water bowl in just for spacing along with the other decorations. For the water bowls, I tend to not go with the more naturalistic ones just because I find they're harder to clean and sterilize. The ceramic dishes, you can pop them in the dishwasher and they don't stain, and I just find they're easier and they're less likely to flip over. So that's just from my personal experience, because I'm sure we've all went away for a weekend only to have a snake poop in their water dish, and then it sits there for 2 or 3 days, and then you can't quite get the stains out. Now, in order to get pockets of moisture, I'm taking long fiber sphagnum moss and I'm rehydrating it, and then I'm actually going to bury it under the various logs. So this will give a moist place for your cleanup crew to live. Now I'll be using springtails and isopods for this. Eventually I might throw in some superworms, which they turn into a beetle and they eat detritus. but I've heard good things about them. But I'm going to wait till this colony gets established first. So basically, all the decorations I put in, I'm lifting them up and then I'm burying the sphagnum, mixing it with the soil. Garter snakes, they, they like to hang out near water, but they don't really like wet soil. But with this setup, the soil up top will be fairly dry, and then it'll be more moist down the deeper the snake digs. So they have the opportunity or the ability to judge how humid. In fact, within a week of having this set up, Cherie, she actually shed, and it was a full, complete shed. So I was very proud of her. And, it doesn't really matter where the plants are. It's whatever makes you happy. And I'm lifting up the water bowl to mix a little bit more sphagnum moss. Again, I don't buy the sphagnum moss at the pet stores because I find that it's overcharged or overpriced. If you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, over by where they sell like orchid supplies and stuff, you can buy big bags of long fiber sphagnum moss for only like $3 or $4. And I'm just dumping the water from wetting the sphagnum moss in there just to make the substrate a little bit more damp. Okay, putting a few more cork flat hides in so my snake has plenty of places to hide and feel secure. And next, I'm taking the sheet moss, and you don't have, this step is completely optional. I'm using this for a decoration. I'm rehydrating this because I find that when it's wet, it's easier to form and stick to decorations like logs and cork flats. I like the look of sheet moss. Again, I got this at Home Depot for like $2 or $3. Most of the stuff I got here was from Home Depot, aside from the cork flats, aside from the cork flats and the wood, and of course the bowl and the heat pad and aquarium. But most everything else I got at Home Depot for fairly cheap prices. Not to plug Home Depot, but it's the closest store, the closest gardening store. Garden store? I'm not sure. It's the closest store I have around me that carries that. And now all I'm doing is I'm taking the sheet moss and I'm patting it down on top of the various decorations. And it'll actually dry out in about a day or two. And once it dries out, it sticks to the cork flats and all that stuff fairly well. Now this here is actually the cleanup crew. Like I said, there's springtails and isopods in this. And I'm actually transmitting this from my corn snake cage since it's been bioactive for the past year. So I just took a scoop of soil from under one of his hides, and it was loaded up with the various little critters. But that said, I originally purchased them off Amazon. Okay, put the lid back on. And this here is an LED light for the plants. I got it from Home Depot. It was about $40. And since it's LED, it'll last about 15 to 20 years, allegedly, and it cost almost nothing to operate. So here's Charisse, and let's see if she likes her new enclosure. Okay, so at the time of recording, she's actually been in this enclosure now for about 2 weeks, and she really seems to like it. She spends a lot of her time hiding in the woods and in the pieces of driftwood, in the cork flats, and the plants. And it's funny, when I'm out cleaning some of my other snake cages or doing something in the room, she actually comes out and she eyeballs me. And I think she's absolutely precious. I've had her now for over about a month and a half. I got her at the All Ohio Reptile Show. It's a monthly reptile show that they have in Hilliard, Ohio. And I got her from Zirkle Reptiles. And, she has been absolutely healthy since I got her. I haven't had any issues. She is absolutely ravenous. For the most part, I feed her little fuzzy mice. And lately, I went out and I got some silver sides, which are, if you're not aware what those are, at the pet store, in the frozen food section, you can get these frozen fish called silver sides, and they're safe for garter snakes and water snakes and other animals to eat. A lot of fish that are used as like minnows, rosies, goldfish have this enzyme called thiaminase, and if an animal lives on it, the thiaminase stops the animal from being able to absorb vitamin B, and eventually that'll hurt your snake. So thank you for watching this video. That's pretty much all I have. And if you have any questions about this video, about my setup, or if you have any other recommendations about what I should do to tweak it, I'm still learning. I'm not an expert by any means. Be sure to ask questions in the comments, post, and like and subscribe, and I'll be posting more videos as I introduce my other snakes. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.